Though Hollywood often exaggerates the untamed nature of the Old West, the frontier was indeed home to some eccentric figures. Unlike their more famous counterparts, many of these characters lacked the benefit of publicity to make them legends. Today, we are correcting these oversights by shining a light on some of the lesser-known but equally fascinating personalities who roam the Wild West.
Ned Christie. Legend has it that Ned Christie possessed the mystical ability to transform into an owl or hog to evade his enemies, a skill that would have served him well given his numerous adversaries. For 5 tumultuous years, this imposing figure engaged in a relentless battle with the finest lawmen of the Indian Territory, consistently outmaneuvering or outrunning his pursuers. Ned's life as a fugitive began in 1887, following the fatal shooting of Deputy U.S. Marshal Dan Maples. Despite being implicated in the crime, Ned, a member of the Cherokee National Council, was conducting tribal business in town at the time of the incident. Refusing to surrender when identified as a suspect, Ned retreated to his home, where he and his supporters defiantly resisted successive attempts by law enforcement to apprehend him, even confronting the legendary Bass Reeves. With his cabin eventually besieged and set ablaze in 1889, Ned sustained severe injuries, including the loss of vision in one eye. Undeterred, he sought refuge in the rugged hills, where he constructed his impregnable fortress known as the Cherokee Castle. Strategically positioned atop a cliff and fortified with heavy wooden walls filled with sand, the castle was further protected by natural rock formations. For 3 years, Ned defended his stronghold against repeated assaults, culminating in a determined effort by Deputy Marshal Peyton Tolbert and his men. Armed with explosives and an army cannon, the lawmen unleashed a relentless barrage of cannonballs and bullets before storming the fortress with improvised shields and dynamite. In a dramatic showdown, reminiscent of the Wild West's most iconic tales, Ned, wielding pistols in both hands, charged defiantly at the advancing posse, but was ultimately overwhelmed and killed. His lifeless body was transported to Fort Smith, where it became a spectacle for curious onlookers, even being displayed for photographs at the courthouse. However, in a twist of fate, a witness came forward in the early 1900s, offering testimony that cast doubt on Ned's guilt in the killing of Deputy Marshal Maples. This revelation suggested that Ned Christie may have been unjustly portrayed as an outlaw, adding a layer of complexity to his legacy and raising questions about the true nature of his demise. Ned Christie's story epitomizes the tumultuous and often tragic conflicts that characterized the American frontier. His defiance against overwhelming odds and the enduring mystery surrounding his alleged crimes have cemented his place in Western folklore, reflecting the enduring fascination with the larger-than-life figures who roamed the untamed territories of the Wild West. W. W. Pitman. At first glance, W. W. Pitman may not appear particularly colorful or eccentric. A short, unassuming man, this town marshal didn't inspire songs or novels. However, Pitman secured his place in gunfighter history with the most improbable shot ever fired in the Wild West. On the evening of September 15, 1917, suspected bandit Francisco Lopez became heavily intoxicated and began recklessly firing his gun around town. As the marshal, Pitman was tasked with confronting the disorderly gunslinger. Upon locating the drunk Lopez on Main Street, Pitman approached him, declared that he was under arrest, and asked him to surrender peacefully. Infuriated and inebriated, Lopez defiantly proclaimed he wasn't under anyone's control and reached for his weapon. Despite his role, Pitman wasn't a professional gunfighter. In his 5 years as marshal, he had never been forced to shoot to kill. Conversely, Lopez was as quick as lightning, firing 2 wild shots before Pitman could react. Then, at that precise moment, Both men fired their weapons simultaneously. Lopez screamed and dropped his gun. Astonishingly, Pitman's bullet had traveled up the barrel of Lopez's gun, colliding with Lopez's bullet and creating a noticeable bulge where the hot lead had met. This miraculous and nearly impossible shot secured Pitman a unique place in Wild West folklore. In 1932, Pitman entered his incredible story in a Ripley's Believe It or Not contest and won an all-expenses-paid trip to Cuba as a reward. The legendary gun that fired this extraordinary shot is now displayed at Ripley's Auditorium in Williamsburg, Virginia. Pitman's story is a remarkable example of the unpredictable and often surreal events that punctuated life in the Wild West. His unprecedented shot, which could be considered a one-in-a-million occurrence, highlights the sheer unpredictability and danger lawmen faced during this era. This single moment of extraordinary marksmanship turned an otherwise quiet and unremarkable marshal into a legendary figure. The broader context of Pitman's life as a marshal during the early 20th century, a period often overlooked in Wild West history, adds depth to his story. While the frontier was largely tamed by this time, pockets of danger and lawlessness persisted, requiring steadfast and courageous individuals like Pitman to maintain order. George Malladin. Every outlaw dreaded facing Isaac Parker's infamous Court of the Damned. Known widely as the Hanging Judge, Parker presided over the Western District of Arkansas, which encompassed the Indian Territory, now known as Oklahoma. Assisting him in maintaining law and order were 200 U.S. Marshals and George Malladin, famously dubbed the Prince of the Hangman. Malladin, a German immigrant, settled in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Initially serving as a deputy marshal, he was later appointed Parker's official executioner. For each hanging, Malladin earned $100, and over his 22-year career, he executed more than 60 men, solidifying his reputation as America's most prolific executioner. His role wasn't limited to hangings. He also shot 5 prisoners attempting to escape, 2 of whom never reached the gallows. Parker and Malladin often made spectacles of their executions. Between 1873 and 1876, Malladin conducted public hangings that drew crowds from all over the country. One of the most notorious events occurred in 1875, when 5,000 spectators watched as Malladin simultaneously executed 6 men. This macabre event highlighted the grim fascination with frontier justice. In 1878, the practice of public executions was deemed inappropriate, leading to the construction of a wall around the gallows to shield the proceedings from public view. Nonetheless, Malladin continued his duties until 1894, with only one exception in his career. He refused to hang a man who had been a friend. After retiring from his role as executioner, Malladin embarked on a grisly roadshow, displaying the ropes he had used for hangings. He eventually retired from the show circuit and spent his final years in a soldier's home in Tennessee, passing away in 1911. When asked if he feared the ghosts of those he had executed might haunt him, Malladin famously replied, "No, I have never hanged a man who came back to have the job done over." Isaac Parker's court and George Malladin's executions illustrate the harsh and often brutal justice system of the American frontier. Parker's relentless pursuit of law and order in a tumultuous region required stern measures, and Malladin's role as executioner was integral to this enforcement. Their stories reflect the broader context of frontier justice, where public executions served both as punishment and a deterrent, capturing the era's complex interplay between law, order, and the raw spectacle of retribution. The legacy of Parker and Malladin remains a vivid reminder of the rough and unforgiving nature of law enforcement in the Old West. Their actions, while controversial, were pivotal in their relentless drive to impose justice on a lawless frontier, shaping the history and folklore of American jurisprudence in the 19th century. Tom Smith. Many envision the Old West as a chaotic era with unrestrained gun use, but towns like Abilene, Kansas, enforced stringent firearm regulations. Marshal Tom Smith was the man responsible for upholding these laws. According to legend, Smith had once been involved in the accidental death of a teenager, prompting him to resign his position and move westward. Throughout his journey, Smith cleaned up notorious towns like Kit Carson, Colorado, and Bear River City, Wyoming. But he gained true fame upon his arrival in Abilene. Abilene was plagued by unruly Texas cowboys who indulged in disruptive activities such as harassing citizens and setting fire to the jail. To tackle this lawlessness, Abilene officials hired Smith and granted him the authority to deal with these rowdy cowhands. Mounted on his horse, Silverheels, Smith enforced the town's unpopular law prohibiting firearms within city limits. This regulation angered many, leading to confrontations where burly cowboys challenged Smith to take their guns. Smith, however, was more than capable of handling these situations, often knocking out the armed troublemakers with his fists. Despite his physical strength and boxing skills, Smith encountered situations where brute force alone was insufficient. On November 2, 1870, Smith set out to apprehend a wanted murderer named Andrew McConnell. Upon arriving at McConnell's residence, Smith was shot in the chest by the suspect. As Smith retaliated, another criminal, Moses Miles, attacked him with an axe, nearly decapitating the marshal. Both assailants were eventually captured and imprisoned, but Smith's death left Abilene without a lawman. His passing marked a significant moment in the town's history, highlighting the constant danger lawmen faced in maintaining order on the frontier. Smith was laid to rest in the local cemetery, and his legacy of bravery and enforcement was succeeded by Wild Bill Hickok, who rode into town to continue the fight for justice. Tom Smith's tenure as marshal exemplifies the harsh realities of law enforcement in the Old West. His efforts to impose order in lawless towns reflect the broader struggle between civilization and chaos during this turbulent period. Smith's willingness to confront danger head-on, even at the cost of his own life, underscores the perilous nature of maintaining law and order on the frontier. His story serves as a poignant reminder of the sacrifices made by those who sought to bring stability to the Wild West. Porter Rockwell. Known as the Destroying Angel, Orrin Porter Rockwell was reputed to have killed up to 100 men, though the actual number is likely lower. Born in Massachusetts, Rockwell moved to Missouri, where he became one of the first Mormon converts and served as a personal bodyguard to the church's founder, Joseph Smith. A fervent defender of his faith, Rockwell's reputation for violence was well earned. When Missouri's Governor Lilburn Boggs issued an extermination order against Mormons, Rockwell allegedly attempted to assassinate him, an act framed as divine retribution. Imprisoned for this attempt, Rockwell spent a year behind bars before being released. He then fled to Nauvoo, Illinois, where Joseph Smith bestowed a biblical blessing upon him, promising invincibility as long as he did not cut his hair. Emulating the biblical figure Samson, Rockwell adhered to this vow, with the exception of one instance when he fashioned a wig for a woman who had lost her hair, demonstrating a rare moment of compassion. Despite this softer side, Rockwell remained a formidable enforcer. Following Joseph Smith's arrest and subsequent assassination in 1844, Rockwell sought vengeance by killing Frank Worrell, the militiaman tasked with guarding Smith. When Brigham Young led the Mormon migration to Salt Lake City, Rockwell was appointed town marshal, further solidifying his role as the church's protector. In 1857, tensions escalated when President James Buchanan attempted to replace Brigham Young with a non-Mormon governor. Young, angered by this move, directed Rockwell to harass the incoming federal troops. Rockwell complied, killing 2 men who were supplying the troops. Despite his violent actions, it took 20 years for Rockwell to face any charges. By then, his reputation was firmly established, and he died peacefully in his bed as an old man. Orrin Porter Rockwell's life is emblematic of the turbulent and often violent clashes between the Mormon community and the broader American society during the 19th century. His unwavering loyalty and ruthless methods of defending his faith made him both a hero and a villain, depending on one's perspective. Rockwell's story underscores the complex interplay of religion, law, and violence on the American frontier, highlighting how individual destinies were shaped by the larger forces of religious conflict and westward expansion. Alice Tubbs. In the 1800s, poker was predominantly viewed as a man's game, that is, until Alice Tubbs came onto the scene. Born as Alice Ivers in Sudbury, England, she moved to America with her family in 1865 and attended a boarding school for young ladies. After relocating west, Alice quickly made a name for herself, outplaying any cowboy foolish enough to challenge her at the card table. Some believe she learned her skills from her father, while others attribute her prowess to observing her gambler husband, Frank Dunning. Regardless of how she learned, Alice earned the moniker Poker Alice and won an estimated $250,000 over her lifetime through her exceptional card-playing abilities. Following the death of her first husband, Alice traveled extensively, playing in major Western towns and establishing her reputation as a formidable poker player. She even ran a table in a saloon owned by Bob Ford, the infamous man who killed Jesse James and witnessed Ford's own demise. Alice was known for her stylish attire, wearing the finest dresses to distract her male opponents. An expert card counter, she regularly smoked cigars and was famous for her catchphrase, "Praise the Lord and place your bets, and I'll take your money with no regrets." Despite her unconventional lifestyle, Alice was regarded as a proper lady, frequently quoting scripture and refraining from playing cards on Sundays. After marrying Warren Tubbs, Alice initially retired to a domestic life, raising children and farming chickens. However, following Warren's death in 1910, she returned to the poker tables, proving that age had not diminished her skill. Demonstrating her resilience, Alice pawned her wedding ring to cover Warren's funeral expenses, but soon won enough money to reclaim it. Alice's life continued to be eventful. She married for a third time and opened a casino near Fort Meade, South Dakota. Before her death in 1930, Alice faced numerous legal issues. She was arrested for running a brothel, killed a man who misbehaved, openly defied prohibition laws, and even received a gubernatorial pardon at the age of 75. Her story highlights the changing social dynamics of the American West, where a woman could rise to prominence through sheer talent and determination. Alice's ability to navigate the complex landscape of frontier society, balancing her reputation as both a devout Christian and a fearless gambler, underscores the multifaceted roles women played in shaping the history of the West. Her legacy remains a fascinating chapter in American history, illustrating the diverse and often surprising ways individuals forged their paths in an era of rapid change and opportunity. Robert McGee. In 1864, young Robert McGee faced a devastating year. His family, in search of a better life, had embarked on a journey westward. However, the trek proved fatal for McGee's parents, leaving the 13-year-old boy an orphan. Undeterred by his tragic loss, McGee joined a wagon train traveling through western Kansas, embodying the resilience typical of the era. During the journey, the wagon train encountered a group of Brule Sioux, led by Chief Little Turtle. While it's important to avoid perpetuating stereotypes about Native Americans, this particular group did engage in the brutal practice of scalping. The Sioux attacked the settlers, sparing only two, a nameless boy and Robert McGee. Chief Little Turtle singled out McGee for a particularly cruel form of torture. Little Turtle shot McGee in the back with a rifle and then added 2 arrows for good measure. The chief then scalped McGee, removing 400 square centimeters of skin from the back of his head. After taking his grisly trophy, the other Sioux members continued to stab McGee with knives and spears. Remarkably, McGee remained conscious throughout the ordeal. Amazingly, Robert McGee survived this horrific attack. He was discovered by a group of cavalrymen who transported him and the other child to a nearby fort. Unfortunately, the other child succumbed to his injuries, but McGee lived on. By 1890, he recounted his harrowing experience to a reporter, even posing for a photograph that showed the extensive scars on his head. McGee's survival is a testament to his extraordinary resilience and the harsh realities of life on the frontier. His story also reflects the violent conflicts between Native Americans and settlers during westward expansion. While McGee's experience was undeniably brutal, it is crucial to recognize the broader context of these encounters, which were often driven by the encroachment of settlers on native lands and the resulting struggles for survival and autonomy. Charlie Parkhurst. Charlie Parkhurst was a legendary stagecoach driver in the American West, known for navigating treacherous routes and braving harsh conditions. As a driver, Charlie faced countless dangers, from battling bandits to enduring severe weather, all while transporting up to 18 passengers in a precarious wooden coach. Despite having lost one eye, Charlie was a master of the reins. Remarkable stories of Charlie's bravery include crossing a raging river just before the bridge gave way, halting a runaway coach while being dragged through the underbrush, and even shooting an outlaw attempting a holdup. Over time, however, the physical toll of the job and a severe case of rheumatism forced Charlie to retire from stagecoach driving. Transitioning to a quieter life, Charlie took up ranching and lumbering. In the final years, Charlie lived in isolation in a small cabin, eventually succumbing to cancer in 1879. The true extent of Charlie's remarkable life was revealed posthumously. When friends came to prepare the body for the funeral, a shocking discovery was made. Charlie Parkhurst, one of the most respected stagecoach drivers in California, was actually a woman. This revelation added a new layer of intrigue to Charlie's legacy. Historical records indicate that Charlie registered to vote in the 1868 election, suggesting that Charlie may have been the first woman to cast a ballot in California. Charlie's story highlights the extraordinary lengths to which some individuals went to defy societal norms and pursue their ambitions. Living in a time when women had few opportunities for independence, Charlie Parkhurst carved out a unique path, earning respect and admiration in a male-dominated field. James Beckwourth. Jim Beckwourth, a towering figure with a full beard, embodied the image of the classic mountain man. Adorned with braids, earrings, and gold chains, this fur trapper was renowned for his storytelling abilities. His most famous work, The Life and Adventures of James P. Beckwourth, is a controversial autobiography filled with exaggerated tales of heroism. Beckwourth depicted himself as a savior who rescued countless lives, battled fierce Native American tribes, and even became a chief of the Crow people. While the accuracy of these accounts is questionable, Beckwourth's real life was nearly as extraordinary. Born around 1798 to a white plantation owner and a black slave, Beckwourth gained his freedom around 1810. He embarked on his adventurous life by joining a fur trading expedition, where he hunted and trapped in the Rocky Mountains. Beckwourth eventually integrated into a Crow tribe, impressing them with his formidable size and strength. He married twice within the tribe and fathered several children. However, after 6 years, he left his family and tribal life behind. Beckwourth's travels took him across America. In Missouri, he served as a scout and later fought in Florida against the Seminoles alongside future President Zachary Taylor. During the 1840s, he engaged in horse theft, earning a modest income, but his true legacy lies in his discovery of Beckwourth Pass. This trail provided a safer route through the Sierra Nevada mountains into California, significantly aiding westward migration. His later years were equally adventurous. Beckwourth participated in the Mexican-American War, guided settlers to Colorado, and served as a scout during the infamous Sand Creek Massacre. His death, occurring in the late 1860s, remains shrouded in mystery. Some accounts suggest he was killed on a hunting trip, while others speculate that a vengeful wife poisoned him. Beckwourth's life, filled with both real and embellished exploits, reflects the complexity and unpredictability of the Old West. His contributions to exploration and his interactions with various cultures underscore the diverse experiences of those who shaped the American frontier.
Please like and share if you find the video content interesting and useful. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment below so as not to miss the upcoming interesting videos. Thanks for watching.